someone has to say something. Hello,
Live
guys.
from Australia.
Australia and US. Yeah, look.
Yeah, I was just
it's
in Las
working.
Vegas. Now I'm in
It's working.
Sydney.
Oh my God. So simple. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's Friday.
Doing
No.
great.
No, it's not correct. It's Saturday.
Well, it's Friday in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Friday
We're
for
in the
us.
future. Oh my God. Adam.
Yes. So first of all, I want to thank FOMO, Ariel, Marcus for all of us being able to line up our schedules. Thank you very much. Particularly FOMO, thank you very much for your time. I know we all appreciate it. I know you're busy. You've just had CES. So just on behalf of all of us, thank you very much for allowing some of your time today. So thank you very much. I guess first and foremost, the main goal of this stream was to kind of pull all the information we can out of FOMO's brain in as quickly as we can while we have all of us picking at the pieces that come out. So I guess I would like to start with just a CES breakdown. So I'm assuming most of the people here in the stream and watching the stream have seen some of your videos. So the one that comes to my mind first and foremost is the UV inspired OLED. So without going into too much detail, what are your thoughts on that? Did you get to see anything, or is it all just proof of concept?
Well, so there was a prototype, was that watch. So what you saw on my video, so this is the ultraviolet TV, ultraviolet micro LED, right? The concept is actually fairly simple in terms of why it's the next step, but just generally, they have a prototype working. The colors look great. It looks fully saturated. There wasn't any missing colors. So the best analog is currently QD OLED is 2 quantum dot color converters, red and green, and then the blue comes from the OLED. So it's a pass-through. The problem is the blue OLED pass-through is through a scatter plate to get that blue out, but it's that scatter plate that absorbs light from the blue, but also absorbing ambient light, which lifts the black. So you cannot get rid of that scatter plate, right? You have to have it to get that blue to emit along with the red and green. So the red and green color converter means that the blue hits the QD, and then the QD converts it to the necessary color. So you have all three. RGB, so RG, quantum dot color, passive. The active comes from the OLED energy. And the reason why we use blue, because you could use many colors, but blue is very high energy. So not only does it fulfill the color blue for itself, but it also energizes and drives the color converter layer. So what the next step is, first we got to get rid of the OLED. As we know, OLED is not long lasting. It's always subject to burn, even in QD OLED. Even it doesn't matter what OLED. It's just very unstable, and blue is the worst of all of them. And that's why LG introduced green this year to make it brighter but maintain stability. And by the way, Samsung did the same. They added green to their QD OLED stack as well. But you're just playing with chemistry in order to add stability. It's not the perfect solution. So you want to get rid of OLED, and the ideal is micro LED blue, right? If you use blue micro LED, which Samsung had, that was that QNED, the QNED with a nanorod blue micro LED, but they thought, you know what, this is expensive. OLED's working. Why are we using blue micro LED? That's very expensive. So they shelved it. So now we're back here. So we're, here we are. What they've done instead is, okay, why are we using a blue pass-through? Why don't we have all three quantum dot color converters, red, green, and blue? But the question is then, what is that energy source if you're not using blue? Well, what's higher energy than blue? If you go in the color spectrum, is UV. So UV is very high energy, and it's driven by micro LED. So it's micro LED, UV. The color converters are now all QDs, right? So you get rid of the passive scatter plates. You don't have any of that absorption. And then it's working on this watch. It's super bright. I mean, 3,000 nits. And of course, it's UV harmful. So they have a UV absorber layer, which absorbs the UV to make it safe. And I know a lot of comments, oh, I don't trust the UV layer, but hey, this is prototype stage. I'm sure it'll be safe. As you guys know, European, Australian regs are they're not going to sell this unless you go blind, right?
because now you can tell the kids just half an hour TV because
Yeah, right. You'll get a tan, right? It's, oh, stop it.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited because it's on an existing stack, meaning they know what QD does. They know the stacks that they're using. And so it's just a matter of, so I asked Nanosys, so what's the next step? It looks like you're so close. Well, the next step is to find someone to pick this up and start making it. Because they're not in the business of making panels. They're in the business of and this is through working with Applied Materials. So Applied Materials is the one that came up with this, and Nanosys supplied the QDs and helped them with all the chemistry to make it work. So Applied Materials is the one that came up with the whole UV solution. That's their white paper. And then ultimately, though, both Applied Materials and Nanosys is looking for Samsung, Hisense, BOE. It doesn't matter. Hey guys, here's the working prototype. Why don't you guys scale up? Make the tooling for it, right? And do the rest. And that could be years away, but it's definitely not using OLED, which is great. It'll be stable. And I think as far as expenses are concerned, micro LED is expensive because you have to have high yield. The problem is with R, G, and B, if one of them is off, you got to get rid of the entire tile. You can't repair it. You can't replace it. The whole tile is gone. That discarded tile is part of the price of the entire TV. So if you have a giant TV, you throw away even 1% of those tiles, you've just thrown away $1,000, possibly, right? And so with this, they even had a redundancy. So they have 4 micro LEDs, any of which, because it's the same UV, if one goes out, you still got 3. And I think, they even built in a redundancy already in this prototype. And of course, you could have 5. I mean, it's up to you. So this allows you to lower the price by not having to focus on as much on the yield issues after. And QC is cheaper doing that. So yeah, I think they really thought through this. I love it. So I was quite excited.
Allow me the first question, gentlemen. So a couple of things I picked up on you said there, because obviously there's been the phosphorescent OLED that's been discussed.
The blue,
Yes. So it just seems like obviously they're just trying to push the boundaries here. But from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, so the current process uses hydrocarbons, which is via vapor deposition. That's how they kind of spray the so-called spray the OLED onto the backlight. So when you're referring to the mini LED, were you referring to like the gallium nitride nanorod LEDs? Is that still a thing in the pipeline?
So this that is unique to what Samsung's been doing.
Right.
So this team from Applied Materials, they just got whatever micro LED, but instead of a color specifically, they're using UV to generate the necessary energy, right? So what Samsung Display was doing with that nano rod technology, it's a blue micro LED, but placed, I guess you've put it in a vertical alignment like rods.
Yes.
It's closely stacked, so it's, the blue, I guess, is more intense. I don't know the actual design reason for it, but it's supposed to be more efficient, brighter, because the goal is to get as bright as you can. And they thought that would be a better I guess, array than typical micro LED, but we really don't know how far they got with that. But currently, even RGB micro LEDs, right, just the actual, they're expensive. Each pixel that has red, green, and blue is not cheap, especially once you get a tile done, because all of the manufacturing precision just to make that one tile, that's an expensive tile. And so right there, that's why we forget low yields, forget you have to fix it or throw it away. Just to get to a point, that point is an expensive process because it's a physical process. The solution is to find a way to avoid this mechanical placement of micro LEDs. And that's not what Applied Materials is solving for. They're solving for color purity, but using less precise, or you don't have to be as precise in terms of, okay, you have to have the red here, the green here, and the blue here. Just have a bunch of UV micro LEDs and you're covered. And it's all quantum dot color converters. And as we know, QD color converters are like the best. Anything involving QD, your color purity is at its best. And so a lot of people are saying, well, forget all these complicated multi-stack layers, right? Color converter, and then the micro LED. How about just a self-emissive QD, which is the alternate path? So if you look at Nanosys's technology path, the other one, and this is what they consider their unicorn technology, is if they can get each QD to be self-emissive, like an RGB OLED, you're golden, but then they bumped into the same problem OLED bumped into. Blue QDs are very unstable. Just blue is unstable, and the lifetime is short. And so here we go again. And I think that's why the passive QDs are a great band-aid, that it may not have the ultimate highest, but the fact that it can hit 10,000 nits with high color luminance, I think we're at a point where, and this goes to you guys, how good do you want to get?
Yeah.
Right? Like the G4. I
Perfect.
thought it's a great TV, right? And all these people, no, it's not good. A G5. I'm like, I don't know, man. If you watch Netflix, I guarantee you it's the same. Now, gamers, I got it, right? You got the BT20 color space, and you could really push that. But for everyone else who's waiting for the G5, I'm like, man, I don't know. The G4, it's going to look identical. But hey, you know what? We'll see.
Well, let me ask you. So, based on your explanation, then we will not have raised blacks with under lighting conditions because we are
Yes.
eliminating that blue pass through. So that will be better right away. Then the
Yes.
other thing is micro LED. I saw a coverage from Digital Foundry that they show close-ups of the micro LED screens, and the panels were all misaligned. Like the pixels were misaligned and it was looking awful. Would that be a concern with this technology?
No. Okay, so a great question. Now that you have the quantum dot layer, that's the layer that's emitting.
Thank
So
you.
it'll be a monolithic layer, just like on QD OLED, right? So it's inkjet printed quantum dot layer. That is your color converting layer. So the tile hides behind that.
Oh,
And so therefore, any misalignment, it doesn't matter. As long as the micro LED is aligned with the color emitter or a color converter, you're good. And actually, that's easier to do than to align it tile, because now each tile literally has to be calibrated to itself, because every tile, right? And this is the issue that you'll see. Some tiles age at a different pace for whatever reason, right? But wait a minute, how come that tile's like a different white point? So so at the factory, so that's another layer of expense. They're checking the white point of each tile before they could assemble it, because if your one tile is off, you're like, what?
Oh, this sounds, it doesn't sound
it's
good
expensive.
for uniformity
It's not
and
good.
stuff like that. Nah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's all expensive just to get it out. And to be honest, if I took a close look at all the micro LED TVs, and the only one that, only the monolithic ones where it's like, okay, it looks great. And I think last year Samsung had a monolithic where it's one giant tile, which they're never going to sell, because I'm sure that handmade TV is like 150,000. They wouldn't even tell me the price. But everyone else had the tile. It doesn't matter which TV brand it is, but if you get close, you'll see the seam. But because it's large, you're not going to stand 5 feet away or 4 feet away from a 100+ inch TV. And so that's another solution, is when they only produce 100+ inches, the tile's irrelevant because you're like 8 feet away. But trust me, 3 feet, you'll start seeing the physical seam. I'm not even talking white point differences. You will see the physical seam. And people will be, what? I paid $1 million for this? So that's why it's not quite there yet.
So
Marcus, go ahead, Ariel.
Oh, I was gonna ask. So they already have a laptop. I watched the Digital Trends video with QDEL, which is that nano LED that you were talking about. That's let's say that's the other option to move forward.
That's the
the other option.
self-emissive. Yes.
Yeah. So we have that already working on a product. So we should have that very soon on a TV.
It's the blue lifetime. So it's working. But if you run it 24/7, how long before the blue starts to drift?
Oh.
For a prototype for a show, it'll last 6 months, right?
Oh, so they're not going to be selling that laptop?
I don't know. I mean, if they are, I'm very curious to see what the warranty on that. I mean, if the warranty is 1 year, what happens after a year? Like, that's why LG has the 4-year, 5-year panel replacement thing, right? I think that's awesome. But, I honestly don't know how long that blue will last, because and over time, it's very subtle. So maybe the first year, you don't notice anything. Second year, but once the blue starts to go down, suddenly everything looks kind of teal, right? It's like, wait, the blue starts to go, then the red and the green starts to go up, and you guys know what's going to happen, right? So we don't know. That's why be careful.
Yep.
Yeah, we do have a super chat. So let me just say thanks to Jimmy Harrison. Always damn good to see you guys. Well, thank you very much, man.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I thought I'd quickly jump in because just to everyone who's watching the stream, FOMO's time is limited. He's been grateful to give us a little bit of time today. So I thought I might start directing traffic. Marcus, did you have a question for FOMO? I just thought before we...
What was the most, the best piece of tech what you have seen on the CES? Not just TVs, in general.
Right. Well, unfortunately, okay, so this goes to a broader theme. Anyone who goes to CES, you cannot see everything. Even if you just wanted to focus on robotics, you won't ever see all the robotics. I mean, you really only have, 3 days? And then 2 days of press releases, right? But 3 days is floor time. And you know, after talking with people and just by the time you're done, you're like, oh my gosh, I've only visited 5 manufacturers. So I don't, and so the worst, and I feel for the general tech guys that cover everything, gaming, cell phones, robotics. I mean, they're like running like crazy. So I'm lucky I only focused on TVs and displays. And so for me, the focus is limited to TVs and displays and whatever they wanted to show off within that space. My mistake was my first few years attending, I tried to look at everything and I ended up looking at nothing. Like, oh my God, I looked at batteries because it's very big, like different areas of the convention center, like, you know, the Chinese startups over there, the Korean startups over there, the AI team is over here, the fitness. I mean, as I'm listing, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a fitness place, there's a food tech, there is a home appliances center. I mean,
Okay.
it goes on and on. So for me, so it'll be panel related. Back to your question, what's the most interesting thing? And for me, it would be the two things. So first of all, the UV ultraviolet TV micro LED we just talked about, that was unexpected. So when Nanosys says, "Come on, I have a surprise for you," all right. And I've known these guys forever. I interviewed their CEO maybe like my first 2 years starting my channel. I got really fortunate that the CEO wanted to come on my channel. I mean, it was right before right during or before the pandemic. They had nothing to do, so oh great. And so I've known them for a while. So they would always call me, "I have something new to show you." Like last year was that nano LED display. They want to show me the development where they are, and the complaint was still, "Oh, the blue's not quite there yet." So this year was that. That's definitely very exciting for me. And the other one though, that I think you guys will be, well, I'm even more excited because we're going to see it soon, is both Samsung's RGB micro LED TV, which I think is a misnomer. It's not micro LED, but it's genius marketing. Oh, I got a micro LED TV. You see where that's going already. So the RGB micro LED slash Hisense RGB mini LED. This to me is awesome because you get a clear innovation in the LCD space, right? Because LCD TVs, ever since mini LED was introduced on a TV, the TCL 8 series, 2020, right? It hasn't changed, right? Ever since that mini, it's been the same concept. White mini LED, and then you have your full array local dimming zone, and then you have your LCD. And it's just adding more dimming zones, getting brighter, more mini LEDs, but it's just more counts, same technology. But when you go to RGB, what you've done is so this is kind of tricky. You've removed the QD layer. So, you know, all those TVs, they also call it QLED TVs because they all use quantum dot film, which is the best way to call it. It's a purifying film. It purifies the backlight. So when it hits the color filter, you get better color purity on those power spectrum spikes that you see all the time. It's just better. And you might have caught it on my Twitter account, it eliminates the red ghosting that happens on LCD panel. If you shoot a laser, any red light, it decays really slow off an LCD. And so the quantum dot neutralizes that, right? So that's a big difference, is it gets rid of red ghosting. But getting rid of that, now you have to find a different way to get rid of red ghosting. That's the drawback potentially. But the benefit is you get better color volume directly from the backlight through the LCD. So now there's even more color. And so now it exceeds QD OLED color luminance and color space, which I never expected to see from an LCD. So the technology is cool, but the numbers, like if you look at just the raw numbers, to beat QD OLED, like wait, I thought only RGB could beat it. So, or RGB micro LED or micro LED could beat it. No, LCD has now taken that step to match or exceed QD-OLED in its own game, which is color luminance, color space. Now, this is on paper, right? And the specs will show it off the meter. The question is, how does it look with real content? And that's what we're all waiting. And more exciting still is Samsung has smaller sizes that they want to push out. Whereas, like Hisense to start out with the big size, custom installer, probably 20,000 plus. I'm guessing, I don't know the price, but that's my assumption. It's not going to be cheap, and Samsung's not going to be cheap either, but at least it comes in more affordable, smaller sizes. So I think over the next 3 years, my prediction is this is going to be Samsung's new flagship technology. I honestly think this will displace QD OLED for Samsung Electronics, not for Samsung Display. I think Samsung Display will still make QD OLED, but just looking at the direction Samsung Electronics is going, and this will be on my video I'm putting out this weekend, is it looks like Samsung Electronics is making a move back towards LCD as their flagship technology, very similar to what Sony did last year with the Bravia 9, because the margins are so much better. I don't want to say they hate OLED, but for them, OLED is a necessary evil to sell because it's flagship, but they make less money on OLED than on any of their Neo QLEDs. And this allows them to bring back that margin with an LCD-based product.
Can I ask you about that one, FOMO? Will the gaming mode on those TVs look the same? Or with low input lag, then you get all that picture quality, then it goes down completely.
So you still have dimming zones, right? So so you guys, as we all know, with LCD, mini LED, full array local dimming, it's always that trade-off between image quality and latency. The lower the latency, the slightly worse options you have for image quality in terms of contrast. I mean, it's really good now, but then the latency cannot match OLED, although it's better than it's ever been. So like OLED latency, like let's say under 10 milliseconds, right?
Yeah.
LCD is really good at above 10, but to get under 10, you got to shut off full array local dimming, which looks like crap.
Yeah.
And I don't know that this is any better because you still have full array local dimming, except each array local dimming has color behind it, so that doesn't make a difference. The fact that if you have a straight up OLED that is just LED, direct lit, no full array local dimming, that's why IPS are so fast. There's no local dimming to control it. Straight up LCD. Contrast is terrible, but boom, it's almost as good as OLED. But you start adding all this processing, and that's an extra 10 milliseconds.
Yeah, so this is going to be awesome, but not for gaming. And then the second question,
and not for PC gamers. I think console gamers will be okay, right? Because
okay.
at 120 frames per second, you guys told me, I don't know. You guys do both. I don't know.
Sound right.
And then the other question would be, would this have colorful blooming? Because now you have these colors in the back. So if you get blooming now, would it be red, green, and blue blooming and colorful blooming?
Potentially. If you don't have enough dimming zones. We're back to that. If the dimming zone, if the specular highlight's too bright, but then color blooming, so actually we kind of have that right now, right? If you have, I mean, you see it in shadow, near black shadow, red sometimes looks terrible. It's kind of like that red it's not even ghosting, it's like a red halo effect. That's blooming, but because it's color, you don't realize it's blooming. Like, what's that movie? Monster Hunter in the cave, that red where she's flashing the red flashlight, that's a nightmare for OLED too, because red is just such a difficult color to get right because of the red decay and those issues. So yeah, I think they have to find a way to solve for that at some point. And this is first gen, so we'll have fun identifying.
Yeah.
Things,
FOMO, with the remaining time we have, so just on a high level with CES, I think a lot of people here are very interested to hear your thoughts about the G series OLEDs and the F series, so LG G series and the Samsung F series this year. But two-part question. The first part is, and you can say no comment, do you often get a look behind the curtain where people say you can look, but you can't talk about it online? So do you know stuff that you don't talk about?
So this year was the first time they've been so open about it. They meaning Samsung, right? So Samsung often brings us into the innovation room where, originally you can't even talk about it. sign NDAs. And then later, you can talk about it, but no pictures. That was last year. And then this year, talk about it, take pictures, we don't care. Anything we tell you on the record, it's fine. So, and that was Samsung Display or Samsung Electronics, the TV maker. And Samsung Display has always been an open book when it comes to CES. So they know whatever they say is going to be on the record. So that's fine because people record them. LG, always close to the vest. When they tell you something you can't say, it would always be before CES, but then by CES, everyone knows. So it's eventually we will know. So at this point, we all know the same thing. It's just a matter of what you guys may not know. I can fill in the gaps for you guys.
Sure. Okay. And so, yeah, a high level CES breakdown. I think one of the main topics is LG G series, Samsung F series this year. There was a big battle last year, the G4 versus the S95. And so this year, the LG's bringing out this, what are they calling it? 4-layer tandem RGB nonsense. It's not RGB. Everyone's talking about it. It's still
OLED.
Yeah. So it's still WOLED. But your high level thoughts, do you think that's getting closer to the QD OLED competitive wise? Or what's your thoughts on all that?
So and before you answer,
yes,
keep in mind I just bought the G4, so don't hype me.
Be kind. Be kind. Well, if you saw my video, and unfortunately my video doesn't apply to you because you saw, right? If you're not a hardcore enthusiast, you are. But let's just talk about, let's say the hardcore enthusiasts, they want the best of the best because they know what they're looking for. Okay, let's get out of the way. The most important comparison first is G5 versus G4. And getting rid of MLA does the most important thing for LG, which is to save money. So that's one. But number two, getting rid of MLA, they're showing off this new technology. Okay, so it's not mutually exclusive. Let's get this out of the way. This new RGB 4-layer tandem OLED, it doesn't mean you cannot use MLA. So that's one thing that we've all talked about. They could add MLA next year. So MLA is still available to them. So let's put MLA aside. It's a boost, it's a turbo for any engine. Let's talk about the actual new engine they put together. So, you go from a 4-cylinder V4 to a 6-cylinder, right? More layers, more OLED. So the colors is more of these colors to both increase the brightness and the color saturation. And so what's most critical is all of the measurements, whether it's Vincent or anyone else, they're focused on the white, 4,000 nit, probably in vivid mode, right? Raw panel, and it's white. And LG, to be fair to them, they're very clear. This is bright white, and it's very transient. Maybe half a second, maybe a second, 3 seconds. I don't know exactly how many seconds. Boom, 4,000 nits. We did it. It's doable. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Great. But now it's the color. So the color luminance went up as well. But since perception is logarithmic, it didn't double. You may not even notice the color increase. So if you're going from 1,500 nits color to 2,000 nits, 500 nits relative to 1,500, you would have to go from 1,500 to 3,000 to really double that. But yeah, 500, wait, that's maybe perceptually slight. And unfortunately, I noticed that slight improvement because, and I want to say unfortunate, it was very subtle. But it's also possible that the content they showed me was not the right content. And that's one of the constructive criticisms I had for all the TV makers who do, last year, this year, look at this content. If your content isn't separating the TVs, then you have a problem. And everything was moving so fast. I'm like, no, it's got to slow it down. So I have to test it personally. But what I saw in the content they used, there is a subtle increase in red saturation for that content and skin tones, and that's all I can say. I mean, that's all they showed. So it's there. It's good, but I need a QD OLED showing that same scene. Then I can say, oh wait, QD OLED looks exactly the same. Okay, well this content is pointless. You didn't push it to its limit. So that's something we'll have to look into. And then now, speaking of QD OLED, bringing in the S95F. I know it still has the anti-glare. What people are failing to recognize is this anti-glare is 2.0. I know, I mean, it's still anti-glare, but look at LG's latest release. They also said they have anti-glare this year. Why did they say that? Now, I'm not saying it's as aggressive, but they're seeing that Samsung commercially, that was a big hit for them. And so now LG is like, we have a great new anti-glare. It's doing this and that. It's going to prevent reflections inside, outside, whatever. But ultimately, it's more aggressive anti-glare. What I think over the coming years is they're going to meet somewhere in the middle where LG will get more and more aggressive, and then Samsung is going to look at all the complaints and start to reduce the aggressiveness. And at some point, they'll be very similar. And we might not be at that point yet, but LG fans, every year you wait to buy a TV, the anti-glare is going to be more. And I think they're releasing the Gallery series, right? Wait a minute, Samsung's onto something, selling paintings on their TV. We should do the same. And we all know if it's paintings you want, it's anti-glare you want. So yeah, as enthusiasts, they're leaving you behind in terms of they recognize anti-glare is not a big hit, but the 1%, which is us, but the 99% love it, the market talks.
Yeah.
So what's the TV to get, FOMO? Tell us. What is the crystal
G5,
ball?
Panasonic.
S95F.
Really?
And I'll
Yeah,
tell you
but-
why. And I'll tell you why. It's because of the demo they showed me. If I use that demo on the G4, G5, I may change my mind. Unfortunately, they don't show demos. The demo that was shown to me was personally shot by Florian, who now works for Samsung. Florian is considered the Dr. HDR in the HDR world. He creates software, grading. He creates standards. He knows what HDR should look like. And so he was commissioned to shoot beautiful videos that had HDR. He brought it back and he, made sure that it really showed these nits. So when he put it on S95D versus S95F, I was like, wow. He goes, wait, but that's not all. That's just brightness. Look closely at the shadow area of this cave. Once your eyes adjust, you'll notice there's even more shadow detail in the new TV than on the old one, and it's because of the anti-glare improvement. So the shadow detail is from the new anti-glare coating, and the brightness, the raw brightness, is from the new next generation, whatever, fourth generation QD OLED. And so, okay, so we know S95F is going to be very competitive. I just like Tizen. I know people might not like Tizen. So for me, combining all of that, but many of you don't like the wireless, or I don't know, is it wireless this year? I'm with you. I'm not a fan of One Connect or this year's Wireless Connect. Not a fan of that. I think it's still One Connect for QD OLED though. It's the 8K that's Wireless Connect. But if it sells TVs, LG may move there in a year or two. But yeah, so quality of life is why I chose that. But I think image quality is going to be a good shootout this year. We will combine all the TVs for sure.
A question, FOMO, do we know the full screen brightness of the G5 panel? Because I watched the HDTV test video, and that was the only number that he didn't share.
I believe full screen brightness. No, I don't know. They at the actual LG Electronics, I guess, suite, there were no numbers shared. They wanted to stay away from the numbers because they weren't ready. They have their own workshop to train, quote unquote, reviewers in what to look for. It's to help us be better reviewers, essentially. And all the TV makers do that. So when we go to Samsung, LG, Sony, wherever, they're going to give us, okay, this is what we think is really strong. This is the content where it really looks good. And these are the specs. And so we didn't get those specs beyond what Vincent has measured himself.
And I have some questions about CES. When you go there, are you speaking with experts? Like the people who are at the booth, are they experts, or are they like marketing people who just trying to sell you the product?
That's an excellent question. So this goes to like when you go to CES, what are you looking for? Those who are quote unquote part of the industry where they know you, meaning like let's say they know me, they have experts set aside to answer those questions. But then they have so many in the press, let's say CNN, they don't want to speak to experts. What's great? It's really bright, done, thank you, and they move on. So they have a whole different team to talk about AI, for the I don't want to say the common people, but people who they don't want to get too deep. They just want to know what's exciting. So AI, new remote control. So they have a team that talks about that. But then they have a more technical team that is reserved for the group that they know will ask those questions. And Samsung does a good job of bringing out that technical team to talk to us if they're allowed. So whether it's Samsung Display or Samsung Electronics, they'll have that technical person and they will email you the answer if they're allowed. later, if that's not some secret sauce. And Sony is the same. They have the technical person somewhere, but it has to match the people that are there. CES rarely has the technical people. It would normally be at their special event, wherever that is. So, like this year, LG had no technical people in their suite, but Samsung did. You know, they call it the innovation room. And even then, their technical people are like the technical marketing people where they know what to expect from us, but they'll have to email us later, more technical specs. Samsung Display, the person showing us around, Chirag, he is their technical person. So he's their point man for all those technical questions. But yeah, so you
And
can get that information.
are they open to an interview? Like you can say, you know,
Yep.
just to record a YouTube
Absolutely.
video, they would do it. Because I
Absolutely.
was like, man, I'm afraid. I want to go to CES, and I'm afraid spend all this money, then go there. You don't have people who know what they're talking about. What they're showing, the content that they're showing, does not show any difference whatsoever. Then when you ask them, they cannot give you any information. It's like, then what are we doing here? This is
And
supposed to be the
so,
place
yeah,
to showcase your technology.
this is why it's so hard. Um, the people that decide whether or not you get to meet the technical people are hidden somewhere in headquarters in Seoul. Like one day you're not welcomed. The next day you get an email, hey, by the way, are you interested? But it's generated, you know, Korean translation from Seoul, because the team in the USA are marketing agencies. And if you ask them, I'd like to do this, they go, no, we can make the request, but we can't guarantee you anything. And then they may never get back to you. And then the people in Seoul, you know, they're like, I don't know, right? So they'll watch your content for a while and they go, you know what? This guy is not a hater. Okay. Because they want to make sure that you provide a fair and balanced interview. Because, you know, you have gotcha guys. Oh, I got him. I got him to say this, right? These are engineers. They're not very good at knowing that they're saying is wrong or right. So that means they trust that you're going to be fair. And so you basically go through the marketing agency, and you know the first step is, right, well, let's see how you do. They'll say, well, are you willing to, you know, review some TVs? You almost have to go through this song and dance with them first as a reviewer. So they want to see how you perform in terms of fairness. They, like, Samsung sends me TVs, and they don't tell me what to say. They just want to make sure I'm fair, that I don't attack them, but I also, like, because if I praise them without being fair, they go, oh, no one's going to believe FOMO. He's just a shill. So sending him a TV is pointless. You know, it's like it's like a sponsored video, but it's unsponsored. So they want to see how you are as a reviewer, and then from there, they may then increase your exposure to the rest of their engineering team or whatever. But they're all
FOMO.
different. Like LG doesn't like me at all. I don't know why.
I have one last
So-
question, FOMO, and I promise this is my last one. So just bringing it back up to a high level again. So
Sure.
it's no secret I'm a big fan of LG because I got so burned by Samsung. I don't know if you know that story, but it's a long story. But based upon the G4 and the S95D or S90D and how competitive they were, and considering how QD-OLED is such a better product, and with WOLED they were able to get so close and so competitive with, in my opinion, really good processor, like a new processor that seemed to lift their game up. If they can make an improvement on that and now they're able to improve their colors, do you, obviously it's, you need to get your hands on and all that stuff. So, but just your thoughts, like QD-OLED is, we all know where that level is, but being able to get so close, and some reviewers actually saying the G4 is a pick over a QD-OLED. Now that they've been able to bring that up to a level, do you think that could be possibly the TV if they are able to make, now they have made color improvements and processing improvements?
I think it happened last year because if you look, well, I'm going to use Vincent's shootout, right? His judges voted the G4 as the overall winner. You know, if you put on balance, you know, it wasn't Vincent, it was the judges. Right. And the judges are the people buying these TVs, really. Like, as far as we're concerned, we're kind of jaded. We know all the scars and all the flaws, and it kind of makes it hard. But judges are like, what if I brought this TV home? And, Brian, hey.
Brian.
And so here's a perfect example. Brian chose the G4 as his TV of the year last
Me
year,
too.
and
Me too.
he had the S95D, and he has the Panasonic. He felt that okay, if the QD OLED was an 83-inch, it would have been harder. But he's an 83-inch guy. But regardless, it's still very close. And if you throw in processing and all the various settings, suddenly the G4 is a viable candidate. So I think they are equals if you take everything into consideration. And then you throw in the 5-year warranty. I have a hard time not recommending the G4 to most people. And then you have people who are like, well, I want the best color luminance. Well, the minute you say that, it's like you're just trying to convince yourself to get the Samsung. Because I cannot say, oh, it's close enough. I mean, you're going to see the differences because you're looking for that. But if I talk to a person who's coming from an older OLED TV, oh, the G4 is a generation jump. So same with the G5. We're going to have the exact same discussion. G5 versus S95F will be the same as G4 versus S95D. Because even without that jump in color saturation and brightness, the G4 is already brighter than the S95D. Now, I know if you take out pure color, S95D will be brighter, but you put on sports, the S95D, you guys know, boom, drops. After 5 minutes, the dynamic mode cannot keep up with LG's sports or vivid mode. It just cannot. So I tell people, if you need a bright OLED for sports and news in a bright room, get the G4. You're fine. Now the S95D and F offer the anti-glare, but that's another discussion. But I think on pure brightness and satisfaction, they are definitely equal. So we're there. We're there.
Oh, but
So
let
you're-
me ask you one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just circling back to the main part of that question. So obviously your prediction, that's kind of what I was wanting to see what I could get out of you, is just based upon the new color separation and processing. Do you think now, because QD OLED, their colors, are they going to improve over this year? Like I would imagine QD OLED is going to get brighter, but the color saturation is going to remain the same. Now that LG has lifted their color saturation, do you think that could be potentially a better or very more competitive product?
So let's get to how do I prove that one TV has better color saturation and color lumens? I literally have to rely on Jennifer Gala to create that content.
Right.
Because if I show Netflix, they're identical 2 generations ago. Right? I'm like, wait a minute, it looks the same. So I have to go on YouTube and say, hey, Jennifer, I need you to make this kind of content, this color luminance, this red, I need the red to be this bright. Let's see. And then, thankfully, YouTube allows you to make those color luminances specifically, and then I can show it. But if the content is, and this is so critical, if the content isn't there, you would never notice the difference. And so here we go again. She's going to have to make special videos to demonstrate, okay, let's see which TVs can push that color luminance. But outside of her video, you will never see that difference. So is that important to you? And I think we circle back to that because their latency are identical, right? So their latency is the same and the shadow detail is close enough. Where are you guys at as gamers, right? I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So
yeah, I just wanted.
questions?
Sorry, when I interrupted Aaron, I just wanted to ask you. My fair criticism to Samsung is if the anti-glare is so successful because most people buy these TVs with they have anti-glare, it makes more sense to have the anti-glare on the 90 class TV because it's cheaper. The majority of people would prefer to buy the cheaper TV that has the anti-glare. And then the premium, the best of the best, the 95 class has to be glossy because it's the best. Best needs to be glossy. And that just makes so much sense. Like, how can they say no to that? How would you do the opposite? The cheaper, put the glossy, and then the most expensive.
So here's there are 2 sides to this. I completely agree with you, by the way. That's a great approach. But then they're thinking, if we have these TVs displayed at a store, the anti-glare sells the TV. Because then people go, wow, what is that TV? And then the salesman, look, there's no glare. Oh, put them in the car. That's how they're thinking. Like, how do I help the salesperson deciding between a G5 and the S95F in a store? And because most of these TVs are still being purchased Best Buy, right? So in the USA, Best Buy is very popular. People walk in the store, you got both TVs side by side or close enough, and the salesman's going to say, oh, well, look at the glare, and go, oh, yeah, I see the glare. That sells the TV. So on the one hand, you're absolutely right. Most people will appreciate if they're looking for that pure contrast without the anti-glare. But in a store, and Brian and I actually have visited Best Buy to check this out. He says, yeah, the Samsung does look better. In the store, the way it's lit, it's almost as if the anti-glare is designed to be sold at a Costco or a Best Buy. And so I think it's a sales tactic, and that's why if they don't eliminate it, that's why they won't eliminate it.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with image quality.
It's interesting, huh?
Yeah, because
Anyway.
on QD OLED, it can't be a frame. It cannot be an art store because burn-in. See, so there's another reason why the frame not the frame. Why QD OLED's getting it? It's not getting the art store subscription. It's like, wait, if it's not an art store, what do I need the anti-glare matte for?
Huh. Anyway, we don't like it. Can we agree on that? Or not that much? Because I don't like it on my G4. This was the first thing when I replaced it from the G2, coming from the G2 here in the same room, and I put the G4 in, and it was not turned on. I said, "Oh my god, oh my god!" I went
and it got
back
worse.
to the G2.
It got worse with the G5.
It's okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, interesting. So, how do we get into CES 2026?
Oh yeah, let's talk about that real quick. So,
None?
If you guys are in the press, whatever, it's easier. You show your media. They'll say, "Hey, send us your numbers." So a screenshot of your YouTube. So everyone who's a YouTuber, that's easy. You would go in as media creator, influencer, whatever, and they'll just ask for how many viewers you have, subscribers and views. Okay, if you're not in our space, which is creator, then as long as you're associated with a company that has technology needs. So let's say you work for a food company, but food tech. Well, CES has food tech. Hey, I'm being sent there to check out the food tech, and then they'll ask for a letter from your employer. Yes, we are such and such company, and then, oh, okay. So everyone who goes, who's not media, is that they're industry attendee, and they pay like $150, whatever the fee is, right? Now, if you get in early enough, it's free. So there's always that free window. So the minute they'll say something like, well, if you submit at this date by this time, pre-order, you'll get in free, and then after a date you have to pay $150. And if you want to see the keynote, it's another whatever. So they keep on layering prices, but the basic entry is I think still under 200 as long as you provide a corporate letter saying, hey, my company's in the biz, or even if your company's not in the biz, this is my IT guy. He handles cybersecurity. Okay, you're in. Because now you're there to check out their cybersecurity solutions. But if your employer is okay with you going, they'll write whatever for you. And that's how you get in as not being a creator, just anyone. So yeah,
So you're
even
saying,
if you're not employed. Go ahead.
So you're saying we pay $150. Then, for example, if I want to see the NVIDIA presentation, that's another ticket I have to pay to go in?
They will list a keynote, right? The keynote's really big, but that's in person, so there's a price for everything. But just to appear on the floor and see what everyone saw on YouTube, that is part of the floor access.
Okay.
Media access is different because so the keynote is part of that special thing, so that'll be a price. If you want access to press releases where it's a physical on-site press release, you have to be in the press because you have to be invited. They'll check the names, so that's something else. But you guys are kind of technically press and media, so you'll be able to get in under that as long as you let the brand know, hey, I'd like to attend your presser. Then they'll email you the registration link. You register, and you'll be on the list.
Okay,
Sounds
done.
good.
Let's book a flight.
Yeah, I want to go next year. And is CES the place where you try to, of course, you meet everyone, but you try to, create a relationship with some of these company contacts to potentially, get a review sample or
Yes.
is that the place?
That is the place because no matter who you meet from the company, they're ready for those questions. So they'll say, yes, why don't you email me, whoever, right? So you go there, all of them, whether it's a small, like Valerian projectors, AWOL, all the way up to Samsung. Hey, I'd love to cover your products. This is my YouTube channel. How can I get a review unit or just whatever? And they go, oh, they'll give you their card, and then you make sure you follow up, and that's it. Then it goes from there, basically.
Because myself, I would love to get some monitors for review, but there's no way I would buy a monitor for myself because I'm not going to use it. I prefer to play on a big TV.
Mhm.
So it is a thing. I
Yeah.
definitely need that review sample, and I would even turn it back.
Yeah.
Like I don't
So,
even
like-
want them to give it away.
So now you have to go to the PC gaming area, like let's say MSI, right? You go to MSI, hey, this is my YouTube channel. I would love to review MSI monitors or Asus, whatever. They will give you the card of the individual handling USA influencers or whatever, and then you immediately email them when you get back, and make sure you take a selfie with them. So when you email them, you have the selfie. Oh yeah, I remember that guy.
Oh, I
Because they
remember
will
that.
have like 1,000 requests. So the trick is always take a selfie with these people, right? And so when you email them, hey, I had a great time, blah, blah, blah. And then like, oh yeah, immediately it'll trigger how much they like you.
Okay.
Always be memorable. Take a picture and then boom.
Okay,
That's a good
sounds too easy. But even then, we will have a great time, I think.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh,
the
yeah.
first time when we're going, so I'm not expecting too much. It's just to figure things out. But let's play it by ear,
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Have
so
fun.
FOMO, what can we? I know you probably need to go or you're overdue to go, but
Yeah.
what
Wife's calling.
what can we expect from your channel coming with these new TVs this year? Because for Marcus and I, by the time you get your hands on the TV, 3 months later, that's when us Australians can get our hands on. So
Yeah.
for us, there's no point doing what you guys do. So what can
Right.
we expect from you in the future with these TVs?
So I'm hoping next weekend I'll have the TCL QM6K review, or at least receive the TV. And I'm really excited about this TV, as well as Hisense entry-level TVs, because we've been talking flagship, right? The best of the best. But everyone else is being pulled up as well by TCL and Hisense. And I think that QM6K, in terms of just gaming TV, we're talking basic, right? Entry level, non-OLED. I think this TV is going to be very promising. I'm really excited to see how improved it is compared to last year's entry-level mini LED, which was the QM7, because they keep on raising the bar of these entry-level mid-tier TVs, right? Yeah. I mean, and the price stays the same. So they don't necessarily raise the price, but they raise that performance more drastically than the high end, I think. And so the focus at the beginning, because this year they're releasing their entry level before they're releasing their high end. So the masses get a peek on, oh, wow, if it's only this much now by Black Friday, I can afford it. It's going to be like $600 or whatever. So you're going to see that probably next week, the week after. And then March is when, or April is when I'll probably have a side-by-side comparison, G4, G5, S95F. And I think a lot of you will get that first, oh, okay, now I know. And you'll see the basic differences. As we know, firmware will make everything better, but at least the basics will be there.
Yeah.
And I have to say, FOMO, for me, the way you compare these TVs live is the best way. I really
thanks.
appreciate the
Yeah.
reviews you do live, because you're listening to the feedback, you put the examples, people ask you this or that, and you do it live right there. So it is so like raw. I love that. I want to ask you about TCL. Where is the 3D 8K inkjet printed display that they announced like a year ago? Where is that display? I was hoping to see that on TCL and CES.
So it is out there, monitor size. Like all three of my monitors are formerly Japan OLED, but same technology. They're the direct view RGB OLEDs, but they're on monitors. Asus ProArt has been selling it for 2 years now. So both of my monitors I use for color grading is direct view RGB. The problem is getting it to a TV level performance to match WOLED is not possible because it's direct view RGB. The limit on brightness is to avoid burn-in. So RGB OLED is very much subject to burn-in if they get too bright, and that's why LG is not using it. That's why you have WOLED. If you want to hit 1,000 nits, 4,000 nits, you got to go with WOLED. RGB OLED is great for what I do, color grading and video editing, because I don't need that specular highlight. But if you want 1,800 nits of peak brightness, you cannot get it with an inkjet printed.
I see the audio is out.
Yeah, out. Your audio is gone. It's probably a sign.
Yeah, but I was thinking on
No.
the no audio yet. So I was thinking on the 8K glassless 3D
All right.
display that
Now
they
you-
announced.
Okay.
So the
Glassless.
glassless 3D technology of TCL that they announced, and it will be 8K too, big display. They announced that like a year ago.
I don't know if it's anything like the glassless 3D on the Samsung gaming monitor. So I didn't get to see the glassless 3D display at CES with TCL. That was not one of those things that they demoed to me. But if it's similar to the Samsung one, you can't move your head. I mean, basically, there's a camera that looks at you and it tracks your eyes, which is amazing. But that means you have to be a certain distance. So as you sit farther away, that angle, there's too much room for error. So I see how Samsung's doing it with a 24-inch, 30 centimeter distance, whatever. But on a TV, that's going to be hard because you have multiple people watching. The eye tracking is key. So I have to look at the technology, how they're doing it. I get how Samsung's doing it. They are adjusting to your eyes as you look. You can look around and everything shifts. It looks so real. But I don't know how TCL is doing it without eye tracking. So yeah, we'll see.
I have a question around HDMI 2.2, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So my main confusion is gaming consoles are pretty much limited to 4K 120. So obviously this is for PC users, right? So from my perspective, I'm trying to understand they're pushing the limits, like they're looking at like 6, 8, 10, 12K displays. 8K hasn't got zero traction. No one's buying 8K displays. So I'm like, is the main purpose, as I said, I'm just trying to understand, is just trying to increase the bandwidth for higher refresh rates. Is that what it is all about?
I don't know what they're looking at. So you have DisplayPort, a competing standard, right? And their bandwidth is very good. And HDMI, I guess, wants to keep up with DisplayPort. They want your TV to be a high performing monitor at some point. But you're right, short of 8K high frame rate, so let's say 8K 120, something like that. There is no reason for that much bandwidth. There's no reason for over 90 gigabit per second. None at all. And everyone says, well, what about this new audio sync? You could put that on the old standard. I mean, that didn't require bandwidth, right? So any feature that doesn't require bandwidth, you could put it on the old standard. Let's put all those additional features aside, because that could have been stuck on 2.0, actually. The question is, why do you need that bandwidth? And to your point, I don't know. I'm still at a loss.
It's just improving stuff and making money. And I'm pretty sure we are not going to see HDMI 2.2 for a quite long time. It's just a new standard. So we need to think. So it's not for now. It's for PlayStation 6, 7, 8,
Yeah. But does that seem to indicate that they're trying to converge PC and consumer TVs into that same kind of space where, Go ahead.
I see your point. So the HDMI organization, I don't know who they talk to in the industry, right? Because maybe they want it, because every video card has HDMI as well. And so if NVIDIA says, you know what, our card will be capable of 8K 120, and our monitors will soon be able to match that at some point in the distant future, but we don't have cable standards that can do that. So I see that. But for us TV enthusiasts, it's completely irrelevant. But unless, like you said, it's a convergence of monitors and TVs, where the TV is becoming that high performance monitor in the future, okay. But again, 8K gaming, I don't see the point. Okay, so let's say the TV is capable of 8K gaming. You pay an extra $10,000. You have 8K, it's 8K 120. You're paying all this money for a better graphics card to generate those frames at a high resolution. But is it really a better gaming experience? I think 4K 120, 4K 240 is really good at all screen sizes. So this push for higher, I mean, where do we stop? Like 16K, 24K? I mean, at some point, let's just focus on other things. Put your money into maybe audio, maybe durability. I mean, things that people really want for their TV, and it costs the same, but this desire to add that, I don't know. Yeah. But you
And
know what?
about
In
CES,
10
Paul,
years, go ahead.
I was expecting to see you live stream like every day. Was it the connection, the internet there was bad to live stream?
So at CES in Las Vegas, no matter where you go, there's rock music, which means the minute your
Oh,
rock music bleeds into the live stream, so I had to, like my microphone, is noise cancellation, is it too loud? So I have to find a place that's not too loud. Every place is filled with rock music. It doesn't matter. Taylor
oh,
Swift, techno, you're gonna get hit. So that's one thing. Second is the bandwidth. Whether you're on an LTE, 5G, 6G, or Wi-Fi, there's too many people. So it sucks up your bandwidth no matter where you are. So I had a problem finding a spot that had enough bandwidth, which allows for audio and all that stuff. So live streaming is a challenge on a technical end, but also you're so freaking tired because you have like it's the end of the day, like, oh man, because I have deliverables, right? I have to make sure I send videos out to certain brands for approval. And by the time you're done, I you know what, it's so late, I gotta go to bed because I have to wake up 6 in the morning, hit the gym. So you guys will see that if you're focused on live streaming, you have to completely schedule everything around your live streams. That's your priority. But because my priority is covering all the brands that wanted me to cover with interviews and everything, it leaves 2 days for live stream at most for me.
so then the best strategy would be just go there and record, and then you
Yes.
start uploading it on YouTube eventually. Because that's another thing. If you just upload a bunch of videos at the same time, then that fails on the algorithm,
Yeah.
right?
I tried live streaming on site, impossible. No internet. Doesn't matter what you do. Wi-Fi sucks. Cell towers are terrible because there's so many people. As far as the algorithm is concerned, you have to ask yourself, what is your objective? If it's your audience, it doesn't matter. They'll watch everything. If it's the mass audience, yes, you will be buried by CNET and CNN and Bloomberg and digital trends, right? So you would make videos that you know your audience would watch for sure. So you will get those views. But it has to be that angle. It can't just be, look, I saw a micro LED. Look, I'm on a horse, right? Does your audience care about that? But if it's specific to your audience, oh, I'm at Blurbusters and look what we did, at least you know they're going to watch. But the minute you have the same content as Caleb, well, the audience that knows Caleb and doesn't know you is never going to watch you. And of
Yep.
course, your audience will always watch you. So, that's something you have to understand when you produce CES videos.
Sounds good.
Gotcha. So guys, actually, I need to go now.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we're all going to go now.
Yeah.
No, because we're going to a big picnic today, and I'm looking at I need to prepare so
Yeah,
much stuff.
I got to go grab dinner now. But yeah,
Oh,
no,
thank
it
you
was
so
fun
much.
talking, guys.
Was
Thank you.
fantastic. We should do this more often, actually, with even more people, and we need to call it a format like, I don't know, best of the best.
The Brady Bunch. But FOMO, I know you were pressed for time, and I just want to say we do appreciate you offering your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
You're
I
welcome.
know you're busy.
And I want to say also publicly, I really appreciate you, speaking with these companies and connecting the Blurbusters chief to see what happens. So we don't, there's nothing
You never know.
concrete, but it is
Well-
happening. Something is happening. So
So to that point, that would be my last comment is CES is what you make of it. So when I go to CES, it's always about the people, right?
Yeah.
I love meeting new people. I love introducing people to people. I mean, they're in the same industry, but they're so busy, they don't even meet each other, right? So like, oh, here's NanoSys, meet this guy and this guy. So for me, if you can make it about the people, the technology will always follow. And so, just keep that in mind. I think you guys will have a good time.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can all attend next year. That's the plan. Marcus
Yeah.
and I were planning to come over to the States for CES 2026. So
All
hopefully it'd
right.
be nice to meet everyone in person next year.
Yes, and bring
Yeah.
your mask. This is when everyone catches colds and flus and spreads it to you, right? So
Absolutely.
be careful of the hugs and kisses you get. You don't know where it's coming from.
Okay, no worries. Okay, guys.
Excellent.
All
Thank
right,
you very
guys.
much.
I'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay,
See
I'll
you
be saying
guys.
bye-bye. Thanks, bye.